What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with the overall markets. I want to talk about the FOMC minutes that just came out, what the report suggested, what you should be watching for as time goes on. But just know that I am not a financial planner, so make sure you take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 30 in total. Anyways, regarding this channel, guys, I wanted to make a very important announcement. I tend to get more views during the afternoons, so I think it makes more sense for me to make this announcement now instead of later. So for tomorrow, I'm going to be most likely attending a funeral, and I'm going to be unavailable to record another afternoon video tomorrow. So I'll see if I record a video in the morning. We'll have to see about that. Most likely, I should be able to, but then in the afternoon, I will not be recording a video. I just want to give you guys a heads up about that. I will be attending a funeral for a family member that passed away, and after that, on Friday, everything will go back to normal. I'll be back with my regular scheduling. But I just wanted to make that clear. If I don't upload a video tomorrow, don't panic, guys. I'm going to be fine. I'm just going to be unavailable due to a family emergency. But anyways, let's focus on the market right now. What's going on, at least thus far? I just want to say that the market is very resilient. As we get these sell-offs that happen intraday, the market keeps on getting bought back up. If you look at the last couple of days, right, ever since we had that announcement about, regarding Donald Trump's tariffs, the market's been consistently making higher highs and higher lows. There's a lot of intraday chop that's been going on for the last couple of days, but overall, the buyers keep on having the edge for SPY and the QQQ. We had this big breakout that happened from this wedge ever since Trump announced his tariffs. And then since then, the market's been continuing to make higher highs and higher lows, slowly inching higher and higher. At the end of the day today, we even made a new all-time high, so the buyers still have a big edge. Now, with Nvidia potentially slowing down just a bit and some big tech stocks, it is possible the market slows down just a bit here, but every time we slow down, we keep on getting bought back up, so that's the trend at least thus far. And for now, the bulls have a bigger edge. So I'll talk more about the trend in just a couple of minutes. Let's talk about the FOMC minutes and more pieces of data. We had the FOMC minutes today that came out. This gave us more insights from the Fed. What essentially happened was the majority of the Fed speakers were a bit concerned about inflation still. They said they wanted to be very, very cautious involving rate cuts. And the reason for that is because they mentioned that with inflation potentially seeing another increase, another surge with Donald Trump's tariffs, they are very cautious. They need lots of good data for them to make the decision to start cutting even more. And they're a little bit concerned about that. They did mention that with the tariffs coming out, we still need more information about them, right? We're still waiting to see what Donald Trump will do with semiconductors, with automotives, and for other commodities. We're still waiting to see. There's still a lot of uncertainty about that and how it's going to be affecting prices. So be careful, guys. We'll be very, very cautious for the time being. And in terms of cuts, we shouldn't be expecting the Fed to cut, at least for the time being. Even if we see inflation being flat or something like that, it's very unlikely. The market's just being very, very uncertain. There's a lot of uncertainty associated with the Fed right now, and we have to give this some time. Even though the Fed said this, right, that wasn't enough to get the market to tank. Instead, the market rallied quite a bit. We saw the market push up higher. And for the time being, that is still, the trend. So the market remains very resilient despite the uncertainty from the Fed. And for now, the buyers have a bigger edge. For other pieces of news, we had Etsy announce their earnings. They missed on revenue. That's why the share price went down. Today, we have Carvana and Toast. And then tomorrow, before the market opens, we have Alibaba and Walmart announcing their earnings. We also have Rivian after market close for tomorrow. But for now, focusing on Carvana, they did actually better than expected in terms of their sales and earnings. Not bad whatsoever. We saw them announce sales of $3.5 billion in the quarter, which is above the expectations of $3.3 billion. And then their EPS was at about 56 cents per share, surpassing the 32 cents per share forecast. So that's good news for them, at least thus far. And then on top of this, we saw some nice growth, at least compared to before. They sold about 416,000 cars in 2024. That's up from about 313,000 in 2023. Not bad whatsoever. About 34 million used cars were sold in 2024. And that's very, very interesting relative to what we saw from before. So quite interesting, good earnings overall. However, one thing that's not as great is the fact that shares did go down just a little bit because of the fact that their guidance wasn't the strongest. But their earnings remain quite solid, and we'll have to see how things end up going from here. With that being said, that's what I'm at least seeing in terms of their earnings reports. Nothing too crazy. They did do well in terms of earnings, but we have to be careful with that guidance. And then besides that, what do I see for the market heading into tomorrow? Well, tomorrow is going to be Thursday, February 20th, 2025. We have initial jobless claims in the morning. Not bad. This is typically going to be okay. It's not nothing too crazy. Then we have some Philly Fed data in terms of new orders, employment, and such. And then after that, we have a couple of Fed speakers such as Barr, Kugler, and many others. So that's pretty much it. There's nothing too crazy tomorrow coming out. Same thing with Friday. On Friday, we do have some Michigan consumer sentiment data and some PMI data. That's more significant. Besides that, Thursday should not be too crazy. With that being said, what do I see for the charts? Well, here's the trend on SPY. We dip and bounce, dip and bounce, dip and bounce. Every time we dip, we keep on bouncing. Another example is if you look at like the 30 minutes time frame, we got this dip and a bounce, and that just keeps on happening, which is a very, very good sign. So going to the 4 hour, we look bullish as we're making higher highs and higher lows. If SPY loses 610, look at 608 to turn bearish. You want to see us lose that. As long as we're above the 612, so we're looking for an attempt to get up to 615. I think that we're making higher highs and higher lows, and there's a good chance we may continue to uptrend. I do anticipate a small dip, though, back down to about 610 or maybe a little below that because of Nvidia and these other big tech stocks that could slow down just a bit. But then I think that the market will get bought back up again and continue the uptrend. So just keep that in mind. That's the most likely trend for now. Watch your levels just to be safe. And I do think that SPY is going to continue to uptrend. Might be a small dip coming first towards 610 before it tries to bounce. But for now, we're doing a great job. The QQQ is a little bit weaker than SPY. It's only up about 0.03% because of the fact that we weren't able to break the high from yesterday. And I do think there's a chance we might return to like 536 for a small dip because of what we're seeing on the PPO. Why made the market dip a little bit? It's because of what we're seeing in terms of big tech stocks. Some stocks, such as Nvidia, are slowing down a little bit, and that is no surprise. Even Meta starts to slow down, and they're using that as a reason to kind of short and change these premium values. So the option chain is affecting this alongside these big tech stocks. If we could break the all-time high, we're looking for an attempt for 542.5 and 545. And if we don't hold 538, we're looking for a dip back down to 535. I'm anticipating we might be dipping lower towards the 536 area, and we'll see if we bounce or not. So just keep that in mind. For the IWM Russell 2000, we have a nice inverse head and shoulders like pattern that's still technically present, but I am seeing some weakness on the chart right here. There's going to be a risk of us kind of dipping a little bit lower. We did close below our EMAs. We need to get back above 226.5 to bounce. Otherwise, we're going to be at risk of dipping to the low 225s, and we'll see if we bounce or not. But that's what I'm anticipating in the charts thus far. For ES, we're looking bullish. As you guys can see, we still have this inverse head and shoulders. And we're technically trying to break out of this channel right here, forming a nice flag. So we're bullish on ES. I even mentioned this yesterday. We could dip and bounce, and I still think that's the trend. However, I don't think we're just going to break out forever. I think that there might be a little dip here. It's about 61.38 or so. We consolidate, then we might try to push later on towards the end of the day back up towards 61.68. So that's what I'm seeing, some consolidation and then a bounce as the most likely possibility. For NQ, we are basically in a very, very interesting phase. We have a left shoulder ahead and then a right shoulder. As long as we don't end up losing 22,000, we could kind of dip and bounce, and we could be looking for 22,400 as our eventual target. However, before we go up to 22,400, like I said before, just like the QQQ, there might be a small dip right over here. It might actually dip to about 22,186, if not the lower 22,000s before it tries to bounce. There might be a small pullback coming, so just keep that in mind. And we're also starting to form like a channel. So you can even draw it out like this. This is like going to be our next resistance. We'll have to see if the support ends up holding. So it's consolidating, but there's going to be a risk of us dipping just a little bit, especially as we have more data coming out. So just keep that in mind. For Bitcoin, we're looking a bit more bullish. If we could get back above 96,494, I think we could easily push for 97,000 plus, There's a good chance of that potentially happening. For Nvidia, we're making lower highs. What's not so good about this is the fact that when you zoom in, this is turning, and I think there's a good chance we revisit our 20 EMA. So for example, if you go back on the chart here, you will see that Nvidia basically broke past its 20 and 50 EMAs. It came back down to the 20 EMA, the green line here, and we got a nice bounce. So you guys can tell that this is a support right here, the green line, our 20 EMA. So we're going to likely revisit that. I think there's a very good chance we do that. So there might be a small dip on Nvidia looking at the setup. There's a high here. We came down, made a temporary lower high. So this might visit the 136s or so, and then we'll see if we bounce after that. But for now, look for a small dip in Nvidia, and that could be causing the QQQ to dip alongside others. So just keep that in mind. For Tesla, we're looking a bit more bullish, especially because we have this inverse head and shoulders like pattern. We have a left shoulder, a head, and then a right shoulder. If we break 363, we're looking for an attempt to push for the 370s. If we end up losing 350, we're looking for a dip. Overall, it's a nice setup. I think this is favoring the upwards direction a little bit more. Tesla is showing a lot of resilience right now. I want to see it close above 363, though. We are still technically stuck in the range, but overall, it is still favoring upside a bit more. For Apple, unfortunately, we are turning just a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a small dip to about 242 before it tries to bounce like this. Overall, it's bullish in terms of its trend, but there might be a short-term dip while the trend remains bullish. So we're making higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows. Might come down to make a higher low back down to 242 before it tries to bounce. We'll see if that ends up being the case or not. For Netflix, as predicted, I said we might be revisiting 1050. We came very close, super, super close. Might push a little bit higher tomorrow for 1050. We'll see if you reject or not, but look for a small bounce. MSTR is technically on a bit of a downtrend. I would love to see this try to break out higher. We got this rejection today, despite the fact that we were looking quite good yesterday, since we had some negative news. So with that being said, we're going to be looking for essentially 323 to be retested tomorrow. There may be a rejection. We're still showing some weakness, at least from there. I also think that this low might be revisited. So the low, like 316s, could be returned. First, look for a bounce for 323, then a rejection as the most likely probability. Excuse me. For Celsius, we are looking more bullish. This is going to be a tough resistance at our 200 EMA. We may return towards the 24s before it tries to bounce, so we'll see if that ends up being the case. For Supermicro, we pumped very, very hard. Now we're starting to dip finally. It did end up getting up to about the 65 target we had. So I could be looking for a retracement back down towards previous resistance becoming supports. There's a very, very big area of interest near 51. I'm not going to count on that yet. I think 55 is coming. If that fails us, then I'm looking for the 51 area, and we'll see if we bounce off that. But that's what I'm essentially looking at. Palantir got a massive rejection. I think they had some very, very bad news. With that happening, this is continuing to fall. We do have a big gap to fill. I think we're eventually going to be coming back down to fill that gap. So if you look at the daily time frame, this is looking very weak here. If we can't hold 102, I think we will be coming back down to about 84. So I do think we're going to be coming back down to fill this gap now. So we might rebound a bit and then continue to dip. We could see a retouch of like 110 before it starts to dip to about 102. If that fails us, we're looking for this big gap down to get filled around that 84 area. It may take like a couple of months, but we will likely do that. Rivian has earnings tomorrow, so if it does come down to fill this gap around around like 13.3, it could still bounce. It depends on what happens with earnings, so we're going to be waiting to see how it ends up going. So get ready for earnings tomorrow. SoFi is dipping a little bit, might be retesting 15.17. We'll see if we bounce or not. AMD is a bit more bullish, but that depends on if we could break resistance. Looking at the 4-hour time frame, we're barely at this resistance where this white line happens to be. Will we reject and end up losing 113.5 to turn bearish, or do we break 116 to start pushing higher? We'll have to see just to be safe. For ARM, we're going to be looking for essentially 150.65. We'll see if we bounce or not. Look for a small decline there. For coin, we're on a bit of a downtrend. We could be continuing to fall back down to 255 or below. For Amazon, we're riding this trend line down. So rejected many times. I want to see it break this and get back above 230 to remain bullish. If not, we're going to likely continue to downtrend towards 225 or below. For Meta, we look a bit more bearish. We lost our 20 and 50 EMAs. We need to get back above 708. Otherwise, we're favoring a move back down to 695 or below. This is the first time in months that we saw Meta actually lose its 20 and 50 EMAs. So this is some weakness that's starting to develop on it. We could be looking for 695 or so. It was due for a bit of a correction. Microsoft is looking bullish. As long as we don't end up losing 413 tomorrow, we are favoring a push back up towards 416. Google looks a bit more promising. If we could break 187, I'm looking for 189. This looks like it has a double bottom, so there's potential in this chart. GameStop's a bit more bearish looking, might be dipping to 25 flat. And AMC might be retesting 3.5. If that fails us, we're looking for 3.42. DJT is looking bearish. I think the 27.5 area is going to be tested. The VIX is kind of flat right now. It's consolidating, so it could go either way. And then the 10-year and dollar are both very, very flat. The dollar does look a bit more bullish, though, which tends to be bearish for the markets. So my view is very simple. I think there might be a temporary dip, a small dip tomorrow. We could see SPY retest like 610, if not 608. Small dip before it tries to bounce again. It's going to be completely fine. The trend is still bullish, but there could be a temporary move down. Looking at SPY and the QQQ, I wouldn't be surprised if the QQQ retests 535, and we'll have to see if that holds. If not, we could dip a bit more. But that's what my view is for now, guys. I thank you all so much for listening. Please have a good rest of your day. I'll be back tomorrow, hopefully with another upload. I do think I'll be able to do it in the morning. And then after that, I'll give you guys more updates about what the charts suggest. I thank you all so much for listening. Have a good one, and peace out.